Tonight on Steelers Talk, we break down the 4 roster moves the Steelers made today after setting their initial 53-man roster yesterday. Also, the Steelers announced their full 16-man practice squad today. I'll be breaking down the 16 players that were brought back here for the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad. Then we'll get into Steelers insider Mark Kaboly, who shot down the latest wide receiver rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers this afternoon. And then we'll finish up today's show with some interesting comments from QB1 Aaron Rodgers, who had some very interesting things to say about the state of the Steelers offense and even the possibility of him returning to Pittsburgh for a second season next year. Before we get into the content today, guys, if Omar makes a move, we're going to have you covered with a video, man, whether I'm at home, whether I'm on vacation, no matter what time of year it is. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button today, because if the Steelers make a big move this year at any point, we will have you guys covered with breaking news coverage as well as daily coverage of your Pittsburgh Steelers every single day right here on YouTube. All right, so today's roster moves. You move 2 guys to the IR, 2 rookies, Will Howard, the quarterback out of Ohio State, and Dante Kent, the cornerback out of Central Michigan. You move those guys to IR to start the season, and then you have Chuck Clark and Max Sharping, who were signed to the 53-man roster today. So it was a little bit peculiar yesterday, guys, that Chuck Clark wasn't on the initial 53-man roster. The reason for that was because they wanted Will and Dante to be moved to the IR today as opposed to yesterday. So Chuck Clark is going to be making this roster. He is the safety depth on this team. I mean, they only carried 3 true safeties on that initial 53-man roster, so this makes a lot of sense. Max Sharping also provides depth along the offensive line, at least for now, while Howard and Kent are on IR. Then the Steelers also announced their complete 16-man practice squad today. Now, they still technically have one spot left on the practice squad if an opportunity presents itself. They have one international pathway player that we'll get to here in just a second. But on offense, they kept 8 on offense, and then they kept 8 on defense as well. Trey Sermon and Lou Nichols, a fan favorite from the preseason, is back. I really like that these 2 guys are on the practice squad. I think they earned that opportunity. And I think that that's going to bring some life into that running back room. That, of course, includes the people that made the roster, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, and Kenneth Gainwell. Then Robert Woods was brought back as a wide receiver. The Steelers were apparently in on adding Marquez Valdez-Scantling to the practice squad with them failing to get him. I think they just decided we're going to bring back Robert here. Then you got Keshawn Williams, the UDFA out of Indiana, who I think is going to be a really good backup punt return type guy. If God forbid Calvin Austin gets injured, you can bring up Keshawn onto the 53-man roster, and he can be your new punt returner. Max Hurlman had a good training camp and preseason. He makes the practice squad as well. J.J. Galbraith, the UDFA out of South Dakota, had a really good offseason program. It's nice to see him continue to develop here in Pittsburgh. And then Dylan Cook and Stephen Jones round out your offensive line depth that is being stashed on the practice squad. Then you get to the defensive side of the ball. Julius Welshoff is the international pathway player that is on the practice squad this year. So that adds an additional spot on the practice squad. So the Steelers can technically add someone else if they want to. But DeMarvin Leal is brought back here on the practice squad. Kyler Baugh is the interior player that they're bringing back here. Then you got Beanie Bishop Jr. Great to have him back as somebody that really made some nice plays last year for this defense. I understand why the team did not carry him on the 53-man roster. But I also see why they brought him back to the practice squad as well. It's great to have him back. Then you got James Pierre, who I think is a perfect practice squad stash veteran in case you have stacking injuries in the cornerback room. He's somebody that can step in and has a lot of experience with this team. And then to round out here, you got Daryl Porter, the UDFA out of Iowa, Sebastian Castro, really happy they're keeping him on the practice squad. And then Deshaun Jameson round out the rest of the practice squad. And now we shift here to the rumors section of today's show here, where Pat McAfee show Steelers insider Mark Kaboly reports that the Pittsburgh Steelers are not pursuing any wide receiver via free agency or trade as of now. Now, to be fair here, Kaboly's track record over the last couple days, over the last week, has been a bit so-so. All right, so just keep that in mind here. But this was his report earlier today, saying as of right now, the Steelers are not pursuing any wide receiver in free agency or a trade. They wanted Marquez Valdez-Scantling on practice squad, but he chose to go on San Francisco's practice squad instead due to injuries to San Francisco's receiver room. They are content going into the season with Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. Now, my take on this situation, guys, is that I think, the Steelers could still add like a wide receiver 4 type of guy, like maybe Odell Beckham Jr., maybe DJ Chark. Maybe they do eventually bring in Gabe Davis or something like that. But I actually do buy that the Steelers believe in Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III as their number 2 and number 3 receivers. And I think that they're going to go into the season, giving those guys an opportunity to prove their worth on the field with Aaron Rodgers throwing them the football. We actually talked about this on our earlier video today, where I talked about the reasons why the Steelers believe in these guys and why it seems like they're fine with these guys going into the season. And, Kaboly coming out and tweeting this and having a full-fledged report instead of just going kind of cryptic on us tells me that he feels pretty darn confident that they're going to go into the season with Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin as the number 2 and number 3 receiver options. And, guys, I think that the crux of that is that they really do believe in Roman Wilson as kind of like that Van Jefferson role where he's the true number 2. He gets the second most snaps among this wide receiver group, and he's going to they're going to give him a shot to prove himself. All right, they spent a 3rd-round pick, a pretty premium draft asset on this guy, and I don't think they were very interested in bringing in somebody and then essentially benching Roman Wilson for a 2nd straight season. I don't think that's what they wanted to do. That wasn't the vision when they drafted him in the 3rd round out of Michigan last year, and I think the plan all along was for him to be this team's wide receiver 2 heading into his 2nd season. Obviously, he's unproven. Obviously, he's going to have to step up into that number 2 role, but you look at the things that Arthur Smith likes in that number 2 receiver: run blocking, speed, the ability to run crossers, reliable hands. He's got all of that, guys, and that's why this team was so high on him coming out of Michigan and why they spent a 3rd-round pick on him. So Steelers really believe in this guy. I know a lot of Steelers fans don't because they didn't see him last year and he's not a proven entity in this league, but I think he might surprise some people this year because the Steelers certainly have confidence in him. But the pressure is certainly on, all right? Like, the Steelers are in win-now mode, so it's not like Roman can go out there and just put up nothing burgers week after week after week. He's going to have to impress, and if he doesn't step up to the plate within the first half of the season or so, the Steelers are going to be aggressive at the trade deadline, just like they were last season. Now, obviously, you would hope that they get a better receiver than Mike Williams at the trade deadline, somebody that's more productive for you. But Roman Wilson is the guy that this team believes in as their future number 2 wide receiver. That's why they drafted him where they drafted him, and they're giving him the opportunity to earn that position in the first half of this year. And then as for Calvin Austin III, he's going to be, pretty much the 2nd best true receiver on the team, but he's going to get the 3rd most snaps, just like he did last year with Van Jefferson taking the 2nd most snaps. But he's a perfect fit for that passing down weapon that fits so nicely into what the Steelers are trying to do. When you get into those pass-heavier situations and you have 3 wide receivers on the field, Calvin's going to be able to go out there and he's going to be able to separate versus man coverage. He's an incredibly underrated route runner. He's got underrated hands as well. He's got great ball tracking ability and, of course, that great long speed. So he can threaten you vertically. He can threaten you to the intermediate level of the field, and he can threaten you with yards after the catch as well. He's got great vision. We all know what he can do as a punt returner as well. So you get the ball in space to Calvin Austin III in those passing down situations. I think Calvin's going to have a really good season this year with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football as well. And I think a good way to think of the Steelers offense this year, guys, is first of all, it's going to be a run-first offense, so wide receivers are going to be, less significant to the success of the offense because of how much they're going to run the football, but also the tight end group is going to play a significant portion and get a significant portion of the leeway in the touches in this offense. Jonnu Smith is going to get the ball a lot in manufactured touch situations. Pat Freiermuth is going to be getting the ball a lot as a possession-type savvy tight end route runner, right? So, Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, you can almost look at these guys as 4th and 5th options on offense, all right? And I think that is a little bit more savory than maybe, calling them 2 and 3 options on this offense, like calling them wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 tends to imply. But really, they're weapon number 4 and weapon number 5, and I think those 2 guys are awesome in those roles. And I think that Roman and Calvin are going to surprise people this year. I believe in these guys just like the Steelers believe in these guys. Obviously, if Roman stinks it up in the first half of the season, I'm going to be pushing hard for them to get a legitimate number 2 receiver at the deadline, but there's going to be opportunities. Tyreek Hill might be available at the deadline. Other guys might be available at that point in time. So I understand the strategy here that the Steelers are going for. You have a young receiver that you believe in, give him a shot to prove himself, and if he doesn't, midway through the season, you can go out and get a veteran to take that number 2 spot for the rest of the season. So sound off for me down there in the comment section. Are you good with Roman Wilson as the number 2 receiver on this team to start the year? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned question on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Harry's. Well, I'm telling you about Harry's today. Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. And let's face it, guys, buying razors in today's market absolutely sucks. The quality products are way too expensive, and even though, they're good and, quality and they shave your face well, it absolutely drains your bank account. And then also, if you go on the other end of the spectrum there and you get the kind of the value products at lower prices, then you get dull razors, you get, you get razor burns, you get cuts. It's just not an enjoyable experience. That's why I switched to Harry's a long time ago, back in college, actually, and you can get Harry's trial set today for only $8, plus you get a free gift at harrys.com/chat. With Harry's, you get a barbershop quality shave with German engineered blades honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without any tugging. But what makes Harry's the brand I trust is you get the quality shave without having to break the bank. Harry's owns their own factory in Germany, so there's no middlemen involved, which allows Harry's to pass down the savings to you, the consumer. And if you don't love your shave from Harry's, they're going to make it right. No questions asked. Their risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving them a shot. And guys, I've been using Harry's products for really as long as I can remember, even going back to high school where, you don't really have the money to get the high quality kind of shaving products and all that different stuff that are so expensive, but also, as a young man, you don't want to go through all the cuts and the burns that come with the dull razors that you get from the value brands. But Harry's is the perfect mix between both here, because Harry's is super affordable, guys, and they also have reusable stems. You just pop off the razor head and you replace it with a new one. The refills there on the razor heads are super affordable as well. And they also have great products like foaming shaving gel, and they also have fantastic aftershave balm as well that cools your face after a shave. So for a limited time only, our listeners get Harry's trial set for only $8 plus a free gift at harrys.com/chat. Just head on over to harrys.com/chat to receive our exclusive discount. After your purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. A big shout out to Harry's for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. So Aaron Rodgers recently did an interview this week where he gave some very interesting answers in terms of the state of the Steelers offense this year, and then also the possibility of returning for a second season here in Pittsburgh. First, let's take a look at what he had to say about the state of the Steelers offense heading into the season this year. He says, "I like the guys that we got. I'm excited to see it all come together. I think this is a time of the year where people talk so much about chemistry this and chemistry that and blah, blah, blah. So much of that is overblown. What it comes down to is communication. Can you be on the same page? Can you do what is called first and foremost? That is what I love about Arthur Smith's offense. It's a pretty creative offense. We spend a lot of time together talking through concepts and ideas and philosophy and different things. Just really enjoying that relationship. I am excited to see how it looks after week 1. So there certainly seems to be a lot of confidence from Aaron Rodgers. He's seen a lot of different offenses. Of course, he's played in a Matt LaFleur offense, which in my opinion is one of the most creative offenses in the National Football League. And he is comparing Arthur Smith to some of those other coaches that he has played with and saying that it's very creative. All right, so I'm really excited to see what Art has up his sleeve. I think they're going to do a lot of heavy personnel stuff this year. I think they're going to get creative with unbalanced sets where they're going to use Darnell Washington just lining up next to a guard, and then they're going to line 2 tackles next to each other on the other side, really making it difficult for opposing defenses to match up, specifically in the run game against the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. But obviously, a lot of teams at this time of the year have a lot of confidence. A lot of teams, probably at least 3/4 of the teams, feel really good about where they're at. They're expecting to make the playoffs. They think they're going to be a special team, all that different stuff. And that includes the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers inside the building truly believe in this unit, but obviously they're going to have to prove it once they get on the field versus other NFL competition once the season begins. But Rodgers also opened the door to a second season in Pittsburgh if everything kind of comes together in 2026. Previously, he said that this was probably going to be his final season. Then he said, we'll see. And now he's starting to lean more and more towards coming back for a second season in the Steel City if things go the way that he expects them him to here in 2025. This is what Rodgers had to say. I don't know. I mean, I'll reassess all that in the end. But I signed a 1-year contract, so there was nothing in there about playing longer than 1 year. But we'll see how it goes. And, obviously you'd love to have success and be healthy, and we can start there with health and have some success and enjoy it. Make a run. That'd be really special. And then we'll figure that out come next February. So he certainly seems like he's keeping the door open at this point. He's certainly not shutting it at this point. And I think how Rodgers returns for a second season, guys, and I think I've said this before on the show, but if Rodgers and the Steelers, both of them, both team and individual, can have a successful season this year inside Arthur Smith's offense, but they come up just short of a championship, and Rodgers feels like going into next year, this team has a legitimate chance to make another run and potentially finish out his career by hoisting a Lombardi trophy, I think that's when he would consider coming back, especially because Cam Hayward has said he wants to play 2 more years, and he's developing a relationship, being co-captains, most likely co-captains here, between Cam Hayward and Aaron Rodgers. They're going to develop a really special relationship this year. And if Rodgers, is talking with Cam during that February meeting and saying, man, I got 1 year left. Please come back. I don't want a rookie quarterback to be the final quarterback of my career. I want to go make one more run for a Super Bowl. I think it's going to be really hard for Aaron Rodgers to say no to that. Now, if Rodgers stinks this year, if he gets injured, if they win the Super Bowl, I think he's done. All right. I don't think he's coming back for another year. But if it's a success in Pittsburgh this year for both individual and team, but they don't win the championship, I think that's when we see Aaron Rodgers potentially come back for another season. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will Rodgers play more than one season here in Pittsburgh? Type 1 if you think this 1 year is it for him, or type 2 if you think he runs it back here in 2026. That'll be it for today's second Steelers Talk video of the day. Thank you guys so much that watched both videos today. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. More stuff is going to be coming out surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers in future days here. Of course, tomorrow, me and Ponzi will be back live on the channel to talk about the latest surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. That starts at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until tomorrow, guys, here we go, Steelers.